Oh. Do we have to keep our phone open?
There you go.
All right, we're ready. Ready?
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Good evening, and this is the City of Sunbury Services Committee meeting for July 3rd, 2024. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Capel,
Here.
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Ms. Strayer,
Here.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
4 present, we have quorum.
All right. We had a meeting on June 5th that I missed. So can I, oh, look at this. Molly was a couple years late for that memo, I think. Yeah, that's great. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Grumney,
Second?
second by Ms. Strayer. Roll call.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Ms. Strayer,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Abstain.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
3 yeas, minutes approved.
Right. Have nobody in the visitors section for this evening unless somebody wants to speak to the committee? No? Okay. We're moving on to new and unfinished business, the roadway planning. Mr. Hennessy.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think at the last meeting, I'd indicated that we're about to begin reviewing the city's thoroughfare plan. And one of the things we talked a little bit about, we're developing a working group to do that, but one of the things that this committee talked a little bit about was, you know, the importance of planning ahead for the roadways. And maybe what we could do is just kind of take a look back at our current comprehensive plan, which includes the thoroughfare plan, and just see how that compares to what the current roadway situation is. So we had agreed that we would come back and present that. So I've asked Grant Colson. Grant is the summer intern for the city to assist with this project. So Grant, come on up to the microphone there. So Grant put together a presentation. He and I put together a presentation. He did most of the work that helps us walk through that plan. So again, just kind of comparing what the comprehensive plan, how it compares to the current roadway structure. Although it's not perfectly aligned, the roadways are not perfectly aligned with what's in the plan. Again, I think that you'll see the benefit of planning and that is impacted where our roadway network is today. So with that, Grant, maybe a little introduction of who you are and to the committee members, and then we'll jump into the slides.
Yeah, sure. My name is Grant Colson. Last year I graduated from Devon High School. I just finished up my first year at the University of Pennsylvania. Kind of decided on what I'm studying there, but either, you know, maybe economics, maybe political science, we're still figuring it out. I want to thank Daryl and Mr. St. John for having me on this summer. I've been on for about a month and a half, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed it so far. So thank you guys for that. And we can kind of get into the roadway planning here. So as Daryl said, in 2016, about 8 years ago, then the village of Sunbury, they passed a comprehensive roadway plan. And 8 years later, as we've kind of endured growth, there are some variations between that plan 8 years ago and the reality today. So I'm going to be talking about those differences and variations. Yeah, so in your packet, it's not the exact layout as my slides here. So I've kind of listed, give you a little bit of a table of contents here. But first, you know, it's most important to kind of look at the original plan. When Daryl first gave me this copy of the plan, I told him, I was like, Daryl, I didn't know that the Ohio River and all of its tributaries flow right through Sunbury. You know, so, and what he told me is like, oh, great, you got a little bit of lead. So, you know, I know it looks like we have a massive river running through Sunbury, but that's, you know, not exactly true. We have, the reason why it's so pronounced is it goes up to a 500-year floodplain. So, you know, this is a lot of, you know, history of this water well. But really, you know, the most important things here that we need to take note of, the highlighted portions here, kind of towards the center of town, or more towards, you know, where we are now. that's gonna be, road widening, you know, that as it's listed there. Some of the highlighted circles and triangles, the circles are existing signals, triangles are proposed. The black or the dark brown, it's kind of hard to tell, those dashed lines, those are proposed new roadways. And then, you know, you have your solid black line, those are roadways as we know. Yeah, and then, you know, I'll talk through some other differences, but that's kind of the overview of the 2016 plan as it was passed by the village. So to start off, I'm gonna first talk about the Sunbury Parkway. As we know, this is kind of an up and coming big thing going on here in Sunbury. This specific image is not in the packet. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea when we zoom in on the next slide, kind of the focus area where we're looking at. So as we can see here, there's, you know, a couple main things we should take note of. These blue lines, these are power lines. That's not a roadway or anything. Those are power lines, so you can kind of disregard that. You can see a new interchange or exit on 71. It'll be, I don't know exactly the mileage before the Sunbury Delaware exit, but you know, if you drive northbound 71 right now, you can see some beginning of that construction. Those plans are in final development, final engineering phase, but I think they've moved a little bit of dirt. At least that's what I saw a few days ago. Something else we can see here. I had a conversation with Daryl. One of the things we talked about is that as it's laid out in the plan, the Sunbury Parkway itself, it may not kind of get down as we see here. It may be more west to east. It may not cross the river exactly or stream there at the exact point. It might dip up and come down to when we do need to build a bridge. We can do it at a less wide section of that stream. So, you know, this is all still in the works. Major construction on the parkway has not started, as we know. And we expect construction to begin in 2025. If we go to the next slide here, this is our satellite image of, you know, where we're at. As you can see, there's, you know, nothing there yet. That's really the essence of the parkway. It's going to be, you know, an important thing, but it's not around. We haven't, you know, broke around with it. And then that's you know, kind of the main takeaways. What I said, we can go on to the next. Okay, so the next area of focus that we'll talk about, housing development south of Cheshire Road. This is kind of the first part of it. I kind of break it up into two parts because there's a lot going on there. We go to the next slide, we'll kind of zoom in on this area. Okay, so on the left here, we have the 2016 thoroughfare plan. Then we have the reality via the county auditor site, another kind of satellite image here. Going left to right from the satellite image, that the first circle on the left, that is Millstone Drive. As it was drawn up in the original plan, it would form a clean intersection of Golf Course Road and Cheshire Road. That's not how it actualized. Now that I don't want to speculate, but if that's possible, it could change. I don't know if that's kind of beyond me. But as we see from the satellite, what we're seeing, what's actually on the ground, that's a small deviation from the plan. Magnolia Park development, I believe that's Buckeye Court there. That additional small roadway there that wasn't originally in the plan. But again, that's more of a smaller development over in that area. That's Buckeye Court was an addition, and then you also see some additional housing units on the main route off of Cheshire Road heading to the current intermediate school. So that's a small deviation. And then Sunbury Meadows Drive to the south, the bottommost circle there. Originally we had that, it was drawn up to connect to South Galena Road. Via satellite image, that is, as of right now, that's not the case.
So Grant, if I can just jump in a little
Yeah.
bit. So on Millstone, just to clarify, so this is the current configuration. Ultimately, Millstone Drive will go up to the corner, the upper left-hand corner of that segment there to the left, where it'll connect into Golf Course Road via a roundabout. So while the current alignment aligns with what's in the comprehensive plan, it won't be that way moving forward. And that's a plan that we've already approved that change. So just FYI.
Okay. Yeah, this is just takeaway slide. If anybody wants to review it later, wrote those down. Okay, so part B of these housing developments south of Cheshire. I didn't include an image of the 2016 plan here, but it's important to kind of, this black outline here, that's the Price Ponds area south of Cheshire here. Even on the county auditor's site, which is a relatively, much newer than the 2016 plan, you can see that even all of those roads from the county auditor aren't fully established. But if we look to the right here, we do see the final development plans. And if you look at it closely, you can see that part of the final development plans are in the county auditor's image, but it's not yet fully developed. Well, it's nearing, it's under construction. A lot of those roadways are in there. It's not fully updated. This was the best satellite image I could get, but this shows you the most likely road layout that we will see when Price Ponds is done, and that's ongoing. And they've been working on that for a while. It's hard to exactly say when the final completion date of that's going to be.
Maybe I'll just help you out a little bit, Grant. So think of thoroughfare planning or land roadway network planning as long range. Where do you want people to be able to connect? Where in neighborhoods, where do you create stub streets so it can connect into the next field or development? So think like large scale, just moving people from east to west and north to south. The plan on the right is an approved plan, fully built out. And that consists of, I think, 6 or 7 different phases. What you see on the left here is the auditor's site, which those roadways get depicted on the auditor's site once lots are platted. So on the left side, you have section 1 and 2 created. That's why you see the roadways, even though some of the houses aren't depicted there. But the county auditor's site, or the county auditor works in conjunction with the county engineer and says, okay, based on approved engineering plans, we're going to show what is actually approved and what lots are subdivided, and then we're going to depict the roadways. So thoroughfare planning, approved development plans, and then ultimately what lands on the auditor's site is kind of the lineage there.
Yeah, and I think as I was looking at this, even just on Google Earth, it's still, these things are going up quickly, and there's not a great satellite image. But as we get further into this and we look at some other areas, we'll get more into, like as you said, some roadways that really can move people across town. Right. So if we kind of move on here, all right, so now we're going to look at road development here at Big Walnut High School. This will definitely get into some of those types of roadways here. We zoom in here. Okay, so there's kind of 3 main things going on here, and I'll go left. I'll start on the leftmost circle here. So this is a north-south connector at 36 west of Kintner Parkway. That's like where Subway is. It's west of that, running north-south. That has yet to be constructed, and this was based on the 2016 plan. That's as it was drawn up from satellite imagery. We know, and just by driving that way, we know that's not a thing. Similarly, we see a east to west roadway at State Route 61. Again, it was drawn up in the 2016 thoroughfare plan. We don't see it. We know it's not there yet. Again, that was something proposed. And then our southernmost point here, we see Sedgwick Avenue, State Route 3 crossing. As we know now, we have the great In and Walnut Trail that's occupying that space. It was drawn up like this in 2016. We know that's no longer feasible. And then we can move on to our last section here. Road development southeast of State Route 3. If we zoom in here, we see kind of three major things going on. It might be a little complicated looking at it, but I'll try to talk you guys through here. Looking at the topmost point on the left image from the 2016 plan, I put a circle around that because that showed a road that would connect the communities at Sunbury to South Columbus Street, closer to the square than it is now. Now, so that was where it could have been, that did not actualize. And what we see here on the Google Earth image, we see that is a shared entrance with the communities at Galena and the communities at Sunbury. That is your access point from South Oak Greasy. So that's a bit of a difference there. And then the bottom left circle here on the thoroughfare plan, we can see on that. So they did not draw in they did not include the communities at Galena, probably because it's in Galena and not Sunbury. But I figured, this is important to know simply because where Sunbury residents are getting into or some of them at least, getting into the communities at Sunbury, they're doing it via, it's in Galena. So that's important. We do know that communities at Galena do connect to the communities at Sunbury. It wasn't drawn up that way, probably because it's outside the city limits. That's why it was excluded. But the satellite image obviously shows the kind of current state of things. And I believe that that's a construction area that's for the most part complete. And we can see that from the south. Moving on here. Again, takeaways, these can be revisited as I all out there. And then that's it. In terms of the 2016 plan, don't take these deviations as like across the board negative thing. I mean, there's small variations all across the board. It's not inherently like that these things are deviating. But yeah, again, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to present for you guys. And if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer any of them, and Carol will probably help.
All right, Grant, thank you very much. So again, one of the key takeaways, just want you to know is again that while it may not align perfectly, it does a lot of the goals and objectives of this, the connectivity that we wanted to see is happening. It might be happening in slightly different ways, but it is happening across these developments. And it's key, I think, for this group as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, to be thinking ahead of time about where these connections need to be, so that when developers are coming in, we're already conscious of the fact that that's an important long-term objective of the city, and again needs to be reflected in whatever the final plan might be. So all of that to say, that's the 2016 plan. We're going to begin to look at the current plan. Some of the roadways that are not there yet are still important priorities for us. Certainly will be a part of whatever the updated plan might look like. So I think we've got, with Grant's help, we have scheduled a meeting of the working group. The 22nd, I think, is the 22nd. So we'll get to work on that, and then ultimately be back in front of this group with some recommendations. So questions for Grant or myself?
First, I just want to say, Grant, great job. You were well prepared. You did a great presentation. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Just questions. So if, obviously you make a plan and then there are changes to the plan. The important thing is to have a plan so you can see where you are, where you might go, and where you ended up, and you can always do comparisons.
Right.
Were there any lessons learned from developing the 2016 plan versus how developers develop? And so when we go into the new plan, we can say, okay, we know this. I don't know how to say this, but we knew when we were thinking about this in 2016, that's just clearly not the way that it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So when we revise and make the new one, we've learned some lessons on how to, so there's not as many variances or changes from the plan.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to answer because it wasn't here in 2016.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure kind of what the thinking might have been at that
Right.
time. And at that time we were a village, not a city, and maybe weren't under the same level of development pressures that we are today. So I don't know what lessons they may have learned as a result of that, but I
Yeah.
certainly think we've learned some lessons in the recent years about these developments and the importance of the connectivity.
Yeah.
So we'll certainly apply what we've learned to that.
Okay.
The one thing that I've learned, I was part of the team that was on the Planning and Zoning Commission that approved this. This is one of our first big assignments. It was also right at the time the communities at Sunbury was coming online or on board. And I saw different iterations of how to move people from Granville to State Route 3, and there was no traffic light there at the time, as you know, John.
Yeah.
But I think I've mentioned this before in front of this body. It's so important that we at least get lines on the page. Because when we have negotiations with developers, there's no developer that is like openly willing to come in and say, hey, you know what, you want to move through our property from the east to the west, no problem. Like we have to do that though, or we end up, kind of shutting off our own lifeblood, or the potential to be able to develop in the future. So I mean, think sewer line planning and roadway planning in the same vein. If we get the roadways on there, we can always reference in our master plan and our thoroughfare planning documents when we have discussions. Hey, it's very important we have an east-west connection from the high school to State Route 61. We're having traffic accidents on Cherry and Miller. Kintner's overloaded and the growth is here. So we need to be able to do that. The other thing, looking back on the plan, and you may ask, like, why do we deviate from that plan? Well, like the connection from the Sunbury Parkway North through Tim Newman's property now goes into the high school. And, it actually showed a line like crossing right in the middle of the high school. That was supposed to be like one of the final stages of our industrial park. We weren't going to go to the school district and say, can't put a school there. Sorry, we want to put an industrial park. I mean, it was the best option for the entire community to have a school there. And we're very blessed to have the school there. So, and the other thing I would say is environmental utilities. These lines deviate, to Grant's point, on like the Sunbury Parkway, what will become the reality versus what is shown on this. These are documents that were created 10 years ago. And now as engineers start to do surveying and, how can we do it most effectively and efficiently, those lines move.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add the great point about where the high school is at the moment. Yeah, I mean, these are, as the mayor said, lines on a page. I mean, they don't mean that you can't change them. I mean, they're just meant to be a planning document to help us, again, as development comes along, thinking about the importance of these connections. So, yeah. So Grant's going to take off. He is going to be back next month. One of the things he's been working on is doing a sidewalk assessment. So he has been walking around town, taking a look at the condition of our sidewalks, and he'll be back next month to give you a full report on our sidewalk.
That's great. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grant. Great job.
Good job. All right, 2024 street improvement program.
Yeah, so and I should probably note, I did hear from Dan White. Dan's not feeling well, so that's the reason he's not here this evening. So so just a couple of updates on the street 2024 street program. So as a reminder, we've executed a contract with Chemcode Inc. To be the contractor for us this year. This year's project, all of the roads that they will be improving will be a mill and fill process. So that was the technique that we decided to go with this year. All of that involves curb and gutter repair as well along the road where it will be milled and filled. We are going to supplement that with additional crack sealing. I did have a conversation with the service supervisor, Jake Stockmaster, earlier this week. So we're going to begin, the city staff will be out in the roads next week, beginning to do some crack sealing. So I'll get more detail about what roads he wants to start with. But again, we're going to supplement the mill and fill with some city work on the streets as well. And this year's program is just a little under $600,000. The engineer's estimate was somewhere in the $730,000 range. So again, we feel like we got really competitive pricing by being out in the marketplace a little bit earlier this year. But what I really want to draw your attention to tonight is a request regarding construction, inspection, and testing services. So if you may recall, last year we CT Consultants has been our designer for the road improvements. And they've assisted us in the bidding process, but we engaged an unrelated party to help us do the inspection piece last year. And that group was DLZ. I do have a proposal from them this year to basically provide similar services for us during the street improvement program. The estimated costs are just a little over $48,700. The details are in your packet. What I will say is this is a time and materials proposal, so they will only charge us for the actual time and actual materials used to basically provide constructions, administration, inspection services. As a reminder, we didn't, like I said, we used them last year. Their estimate for us last year was just a little over $38,000, but the actual expenditure for these services last year was $28,000. So they actually came in, roughly 25% below what they thought their estimated amount would be. And I think, as I've talked through this with the DLZ team, part of it is just the uncertainty of the contractor. While they may have worked with Chemcode in the past, it doesn't mean that, that they've worked with them under this particular set of circumstances. As a reminder, we've got a performance date in the contract that they basically have to do the North Miller Drive improvements by August 14th. Substantial completion is by September 13th. So again, not necessarily knowing what will happen once they get into the field. I think they're estimating a little bit high as it relates to the costs, and I think they would say the same thing. What makes this cost a little bit higher this year than last year, at least from an estimate perspective, is that, again, all of it's mill and fill, which means there's likely to be more concrete work done as well along North Miller Drive, and again, anywhere else that there's mill and fill. And one of the advantages of their services, they do provide inspection services and testing services as well. So they'll be testing, the strength of the concrete. Basically, I guess the strength of the concrete is primarily what they're testing for us. They'll also do that with the asphalt as well. So there's going to be more of that done with this year's program, even though it's a smaller program than last year's program. So with that, like I said, we do have that proposal from them. I'd like to advance that if we could at the council meeting later this evening. We do always account for construction and inspection services. So this is something that is built into our base street program. And we're very happy with the services that we received from DLZ last year. So with that, I'll stop. Just questions or comments regarding the street program or the DLZ proposal.
So Derek, you're just saying with the cost that I really need to start bringing glasses to these meetings. I trust my eyes and I shouldn't. But that it's 45. Is that roughly 45.8, if I'm reading that right? For the estimated project total?
Yeah, it's packet page 17. That's the final number.
I'm sorry. Okay.
The total estimated cost, 48,735.
Gotcha. And you said last year was 38.
38.
Okay.
Just a little over 30. Almost 30.
Okay, so 10K increase, but last year they were 10K under. Not that we're banking on them coming under, but
right.
They're built in enough. It sounds like a little bit of a cushion just to cover.
Yeah, because again, uncertain of what actually happens when you get into the field.
Sure.
One thing I really like about this is I love that they administer the program for us.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they're out in the field, they're communicating schedules. As we run into concerns, we escalate it through them and then they address it with the contractor. Like last year, we had some, is it Cape Seal?
Mhm.
Like some concerns
Yes.
from residents about people driving on it too soon and there were tire prints and they came out and actually tested and said, listen, give it 1 year.
Mhm.
You should level out. I actually have driven that street since and it did exactly as they said. The second reason is the testing. This isn't, some of it is field testing. The other stuff is like they're taking samples of the asphalt back to a lab and running like how much petroleum is in it versus aggregate versus, all the other materials that are in it to make sure that, given this heat that we have and when it's laid, is it going to last as long as it should? And then the third thing where I've seen value is where we have a separate company doing this is they're an auditor on our behalf of both the engineering services, CT, and the contractor. And if there's disputes, like we've had before, I remember when Kintner Parkway, they tore out the signals and things. I mean, it was everybody kind of pointing at each other like, sorry, the engineering plans didn't show it. And it's nice to have somebody say, actually, you know what, it did say to rip out the stop strips or whatever they are that turn the signals in the road. So.
Yeah, those are all great points. Thank you, Mayor. So-
Sorry, I cut you off. Darryl.
No, I couldn't have said it better.
All right, so next we've got an update on the municipal and police building renovations.
Yes, so I've included in the packet, the most recent, report from the city's, owner, or from the owner's representative. So this also from DLZ, we've engaged them to assist us with the building renovations. So I know you've seen this, report before, but again, it's updated with their most recent set of photos. So just a couple of things, just to, kind of give you a sense of where the project is at the moment. So substantial completion of the project is scheduled for, July 18th. So a little more than 2 weeks away from now. Now, they still need to, at that point, they'll still need to do the deep cleaning at the end. There may be some punch list items, and we'll obviously have to secure the occupancy permits as well. So I'm not saying that we're in the space on July 18th, but they're telling me that all of that they think happens, within a week or so. So I highly anticipate that we're in the facility, both the police and the municipal staff are in the renovated facilities by the end of this month. So as I think I said to the chairman, perhaps the next time we meet, we'll be in our new space and we'll be showing you pictures of the new space as opposed to the under construction space. So, but yeah, anyway, that's I don't think there shouldn't be any surprises, I think, in that update, but just want to make sure everybody understands where we are. And then I think we've talked a little bit about doing something to invite the public to be able to see these facilities once they're completed. We are looking at sometime in August to do that. That'll at least give us a chance to get in the building, make sure that there aren't any glitches. I mean, there may be some, but just to and also kind of prepare the building for some public viewing. So.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a couple construction issues or, very minor, but they're both with the electrical subcontractor. Is there a scheduling issue with the electrical contractor? Is it just materials or is it just delayed or?
Yes, I think it's the lighting in the hallway for the police department.
Yeah.
I think that's the one, and that one has been on there for a while. And I think another one is the lighting in the municipal building.
Yes.
The main conference room. That's just a matter of the light fixtures have not come in yet.
Okay.
So it's not that the contractor hasn't done their work. They're waiting on the fixtures.
Thank you.
I like that there's an action shot of the tile guy.
Yes. I'm sure he appreciates the action.
And then last up on the agenda is update on Reservoir Park improvements.
So I think where we last left this, again, there are two phases to the Reservoir Park project. One is the dam safety issues associated with allowing for the rapid drawdown of water in the event that there's an emergency. That portion of the project actually is complete. What we're waiting on is completion of the park portion of the improvement. We do have there's a fishing dock that's been it's a major amenity associated with the park. It's not yet connected via the ramp. The contractor is scheduled to be out there on Friday, so after 2 days hence, to make that connection. So that should be in place by the end of this week. And as I'd indicated to the Parks Committee, we'll also try to schedule some sort of an opportunity to do a ribbon cutting or something like that. We should celebrate, these investments that we're making, not only these amenities, but also maybe the things that people don't necessarily recognize are important, but are important. But the other punch list item that they need to take care of over there is there's a portion of the trail that's not ADA accessible. It's got too much of a slope on it, so they're going to have to go back in there and do a little bit of modification to the trail itself. But they do have a plan for how to do that. So those are kind of the two big pieces. And then the third item on the punch list is they just have some items in the turf area next to the parking lot itself. There are there's some rebar sticking up from some old fixtures that were underground when they went through and basically dug up for the new storm drain. So they've got to get those out of there. But again, that's relatively modest when all said and done. So Ironsight, as a reminder, is the contractor that we've been working with. Ironsight has done some other work in the city as well. They've done the trail work over here at Fallen Heroes. So, I think it's a contractor we've been able to trust, and they're local. And so I think they're doing a really good job as well. So that's where the Reservoir Park project is.
Nice to see completion dates.
Yeah.
Popping up on things. That's great. Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any additional topics or updates for the committee?
I just have one item, but
Mhm.
go ahead, Joe.
Well, actually, I was just thinking, I did also speak with Jake Stockmaster. We will have street sweeping is scheduled to happen the week of July 15th. So we'll be communicating to the public. We will have a new sweeping contractor this year than what we've had the last 2 years. But after going through a competitive bidding slot process, really got a great price. And so, we'll monitor to make sure that we're getting good quality service as well. But anyway, new contractor, but again, we'll keep an eye on that. So that was the only other thing.
One thing I wanted to mention, and I guess in general, we have a sewer agreement with the county where they service and where the city of Sunbury is obligated to service. And one item that I envision that we should work to button up is for existing township residents that have been on septic, as we're taking sewer lines adjacent to their property. And I think we need to consider a couple things. One, I think we need to consider offering a discount of service. So similar to what the county does, if people that are on septic want to connect into sewer lines, give them like a 50% discount. I mean, that's a big deal versus replacing a broken system, plus just long-term connecting into sewer versus septic. I mean, for the environment, it's the right thing to do. The one thing that I think we can point to with our intergovernmental agreement or our service agreement with the county is there should, in my opinion, I think we should also require annexation in that case. And that is in our agreement with the county. If township residents want to connect into sewer, then they have to annex. So I just, obviously there has to be continuity. And there's some details that people smarter than me need to work through, but I wanted to propose that concept because it just doesn't make sense to me that we're going to run a sewer line past people's house and say, sorry, you can't connect in.
Right.
Because you're either not a city resident or you don't have the money to pay, $9,000 to tap into our sewer line.
I think it makes sense, and the annex makes sense too, because if we're maintaining the sewer line, we need the revenue that comes in from servicing that, so that makes sense. And then I love the idea of giving some type of discount program. It's a choice though, still, correct? It's not, because I used to live up north and it was mandated that we connect to the sewer, and it was, at that time, it was probably $6,000 to connect, and some residents said, I just can't afford it, and the response they got was tough toenails. I mean,
Right.
so I think if the city can work with residents and give them some type of, discounted rate, I think that'd be huge.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, we've done this, if I said a handful, it's less than a handful of times where we've a failing septic tank, somebody needs to connect in. This is an existing Sunbury resident, and in these cases, we've allowed them to pay over a certain amount of time.
Right.
And I don't quote me on the time, but it's something like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, something
Friendly
in that
terms,
range.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then it gets assessed through their tax bill, and it's not a lump sum charge.
I think it's a great idea.
So
Well, the townships, you have to have them agree to be annexed, correct?
well, there is in our intergovernmental agreement, Yes, to answer your question, yes, somebody, the property owner would have to agree to annex. But that is a requirement for them to, anybody to connect into sewer today. So we don't have any township residents that connect into Sunbury sewer lines.
So when you rent it out there, but the township officials would have to first want it.
No, this is a good example would be along Golf Course Road, Cheshire Road, and Domigan, where it's Sunbury Township, Sunbury Township, Sunbury. Like basically, it's like, and we're working with the county on roadway improvements to add safety measures and looking at traffic lights with ODOT, and it's going to connect into the Sunbury Parkway. The Sunbury Parkway will cross across there, and as we're planning roadway improvements, we're also planning sewer improvements. So there are stretches of houses that are in the township that if they connect into the sewer line, as our agreement with the county is documented, would be required to annex into the city.
And just, I think it's an individual decision per household. We don't need to go to the township and say, hey, do you mind if the Smiths connect with us? That's
Correct.
part of the agreement to say, yeah,
Correct.
right.
It would be the homeowner's choice, not
Right.
the township's choice, not the county's choice. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, I think we need to make it palatable and not say, hey, you know what, pay $9,000
Oh, not that.
on day one if you want this, and you have to annex. If somebody has a failed septic tank, I know people that live on that road, they're saying, our septic tank is near end of life, when is sewer coming? They live in the township, so they're asking for it, is what I'm saying, but it wouldn't be forced upon.
You could end up with a pretty ugly zoning map if certain lots do annex and other ones don't though, right?
Right, I mean, we have that on Cheshire Road
Yeah.
right now,
It's
on the east-west portion of Cheshire Road. It's a beautiful landscape, but on a map, when it's color coded in a township or a city, yeah, it's disparate.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I mean, to the mayor's point, we do have a handful that are kind of on a payment plan. In fact, we recently had a sale of a property that was the subject of one of those connections. And so at the sale, we had to figure out what the remaining balance was, and that ultimately got settled in the in the closing documents and what have you. So, but I know for the homeowner, it certainly worked for them because, they were paying it again as part of their property tax over some period of time. And they appreciated that. So it worked. So I hear what you're saying. We'll start to develop a policy position around that and then figure out how to put that into an ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else for good of the order? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
By Mayor St. John. Roll call.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mayor St. John?
yes.
Mr. Grundy?
Yes.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes.
4 yeas, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.